Hey, my legion, how y'all doing today? Here today to do where I plan on doing something about growing up with Canadian TV. I keep putting it off because the night shift came in, and then I'm always thinking about it at work, and then when I get home, I have to do so much. And my dad's always, it's tough. But I'm thinking, I'm definitely want to do it, but I want to do a special video just about this one show. Hilarious House of Frightenstien. This is the show that introduced me to Canadian TV. This was a show that was started in 1971 in Hamilton, Canada. And I remember in the old house in Albion, even before, because I moved to the house in Cranesville, which we stayed most of my childhood before the army. In the summer, right before I started, a month or two right before I started second grade. And I remember in the old house watching the Hilarious House of Frightenstein, and it was so cool. It was the coolest kid show out there. And there was other shows like it's kind of like a Canadian version of Sesame Street, but it was a million times better than Sesame Street. And I love Sesame Street, don't get me wrong, but it was done with monsters, and there was some educational stuff in there with animals. They're talking about animals and also physics, believe it or not. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Basically, the show was Vincent Price would introduce it, right? And he'd go into speak and he'd tell these really neat poems. He had a really neat poem that led into the very opening credits, and it was very exciting the way he did the levels and stuff because he's a great actor. It was very exciting, especially for a kid. And then you go to the thing, and then it's Dracula, Igor, and Brucey. Brucey is the Frankenstein monster, which Dracula and Igor spend the entire length of the show, the entire 130 episodes, it made 130 episodes, trying to bring back to life. And usually Dracula was played by the one and only Billy Van, who played 8 characters on the show. And he was the main star, even though when you see the credits it says starring Billy Van, Billy Van, Billy Van, it says etc., etc. He did 8 characters, and there was like 4 other people on there, including like Vincent Price, the guy who played Igor, the guy who played Superman, and then the professor, who's the guy doing the physics. And basically, Billy Van was a real genius. He is mostly improvised. The show was really funny. I just watched an episode. That's why I'm doing a review of it now. I watched an episode on YouTube, and I was still laughing. I had a smile on my face from beginning to end. I was content with the knowledge of bringing back my childhood and stuff like that. Very content. If I was a cat, I'd probably be purring. It was very entertaining, and like he does these characters, Frankenstein, really funny, and the humor's great. He does other characters. He does like the Zany Zoo, the zookeeper, and they show a film about animals and stuff. They have Pet Doctor, Dr. Pet, and he brings a thing to Igor, a different pet, and he talks about it, and he says pets are friends. And Igor always asks Mr. Sloth if he keep the pet, and Mr. Sloth always says no. And they had other characters on there. They had Griselda, the Ghastly Gourmet, which was a witch, who wasn't really the greatest cook, played by Billy Van, of course. And then she was doing all these crazy concoctions, and then she said something like, "I know what would make this food good to stick to your ribs: glue." And it was really funny. A lot of 70s type humor, hippie humor too. There was like a guru in there playing a centaur. I think it was centaur and stuff like that. And at the end, they get like a dozen flowers thrown on them. There's an oracle who breaks so many crystal balls. I know my friend Diane, Cat W Mag, has some crystal balls, but she'd probably go broke because he broke over like 10,000. I know they're not cheap. So I think Diane would go broke if she broke as many as she hadn't broken any, but if she broke them like the Oracle did, she'd probably go broke. And it's so funny. And then he does like horoscopes in there. It's really a great show. He does other characters. He did like there's a Superman guy that always flies backwards. He does Peace Man, because it's like 71. It's like hippie type humor too, but for kids, it's really brilliant. There's a gorilla that always comes out, and like there's different skits. There's a librarian who always tells these stories. He says, "I got you now. You're terrified, aren't you?" And of course, the story wasn't terrifying, but it was very good, very funny stuff. And of course, the professor, and the professor is the one that teaches physics. I remember seeing him on another show too. I mean, I wish for Canadian TV, I wish the show would have been more successful. I mean, or at least it was just on the Canadian channels. I mean, it's a shame. I wish it would have gotten picked up by U.S. TV and syndicated there. It would have done great. Or PBS, because PBS brought started showing Red Green, a Canadian show. I wish they would have brought Hilarious House of Frightenstien. It would have gone really well. I mean, the only thing that happened was the professor who did physics had his own show that was on PBS. That's probably the closest bridge to that show ever being on PBS. It's a shame. It's a great show and most people don't realize it. You know, it was so brilliant. And like a thing of the humor, like they were trying to bring Boosie back to life. They're trying to bring him back through laughter. And they tried to feather on that, didn't work. And he said, well, use it as a pen afterwards. Or they give you a thing of this humor. They got a joke book. And this is a cheesy joke, but I'm going to say it anyways. And they said, the Dracula played by Billy Van said, why did the chicken cross the road? Because it had red suspenders. Like that, something like that. It was so funny. I was like, what the? It was crazy. I loved the show. It was so hip. I mean, because we had, as kids, there were some regular shows like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and Captain Kangaroo. Now, those shows weren't hip, but they were good shows. They were great shows, too. I love those shows, too. And then Captain Kangaroo started to get a little bit hipper and cooler when they had the Captain Nemo cartoons on there. But Hilarious House of Frankenstein was the coolest show, hippest show for kids. Because there was other cool, hip shows that were on, like Electric Company. And then there was, Bay City Rollers had a show on NBC Saturday mornings. The Hudson Brothers had a show. Those were hip, cool shows. And then whenever Electric Company went off there, they had 321 Contact. That was a really hip, cool show, but nothing was cooler than Hilarious House of Frightenstien. It was really awesome. What else was there? I remember it was like a monster theme type show. But the one thing I want to say is it was not scary towards kids. All the monsters were lovable. I mean, and it was very friendly, a great show. And they also had a Wolfman who did a radio station. They played a song, and he was like, he did like a Wolfman Jack type impersonation. It was really good, played by Billy Van once again. Great makeup, great sets, great creativity and brilliance. And they said mostly it was all ad-libbed by Billy Van, you know. And I just wish the show would have taken off. It was such a brilliant show. I bet you a lot of people have childhood memories of the show. What else was I going to say? Oh, in 80s on Saturday morning TV, the closest thing to that was there's a cool show called The Monster Squad, which I loved on NBC Saturday mornings with Fred Grandy from Love Boat, and then he became a senator who had like it was like Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and they were like they helped fight crime and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. I liked that show. That was the closest they got to Hilarious House of Frightenstein. I even had a board game about that show. I should I think there might be an episode or two of that on YouTube. Maybe I should check it out and do a review of that sometime too. But that was a great show too. And the board game, I wish I still had the board game. That's probably worth some money now. Maybe, I don't know. But I love that show too. I just wish Hilarious House of Frightenstein would have got the notoriety that it deserved. So that's why I'm doing this video. I'm trying to help. You know, if you get a chance, you know, just click it on YouTube and just check out. There's little snippets and then there's like a full episode with some interviews and stuff. Brilliant show. I give it a 10 out of 10. How could I not? It's brilliant. So they have for the Canadian TV show, Hilarious House of Frightenstein. I plan on doing something about growing up with Canadian TV. I keep putting it off because it's tough doing these memories. I gotta really think it out and then maybe take some notes about stuff because I haven't seen Canadian TV really since, I mean, aside from like on DVD and stuff like that, since I went in the Army, because our cable does not have Canadian TV now. It has everything else and then just repeats everything else in HD and all this other crap, but it doesn't have Canadian TV. I wish we did. You know, I haven't really seen Canadian TV since 87. I'll tell you the very last movie I saw when I do that growing up with Canadian TV before I went in the Army. But I loved Hilarious House of Frightenstein. You couldn't get much better and much cooler than that show for kids. But I mean, I'm an adult, and adults can watch the show and just still laugh. It's really funny, really silly. You have to pay attention. There's lots of jokes in there. Really brilliant stuff. So, till next time, everybody, that's my review of Hilarious House of Frightenstein. So, until next time, take care, my legion, and Ooga Booga. Ooga Booga. Yeah, I almost forgot about Hilarious House of Frightenstein. I remember I used to have to go to catechism, which is like Catholic Sunday school, but it was on a Saturday morning. I remember telling there was one kid I didn't get along with. I was telling all the kids about how cool Hilarious House of Frightenstein was. And then this kid I didn't get along with said, I'm Jason Callan, and I like Hilarious House of Frightenstein. Like that. I was like, I'll knock you in your goddamn mouth, bastard. I forgot to tell you about that. All right, take care, everybody.